Hello and good evening. I'm thrilled to bring to your attention a video put out by the Carney government about the affordability crisis. Now, I don't know about you, but I always find it a fucking riot when governments attempt to explain why things are expensive, because the explanation almost never includes the people who spent the money.
Inflation shot up globally during the pandemic. Supply chains were completely upended, from factory closures to transportation delays, driving up the cost of everyday essentials. Overall, these pressures are now easing. But because inflation shot up so much during the pandemic, many prices are still high, and Canadians are still feeling the impact on their household budgets.
All right, let's pause here for a moment. The video frames the affordability crisis as something that started with the pandemic. And sure, the pandemic absolutely shocked the global economy. But prices didn't suddenly wake up in 2020 and decide to rise. Long before COVID, Canadians were already watching housing run away from incomes, grocery bills creep upward, and household debt hit record levels. In other words, the pandemic may have thrown gasoline on the fire, but the wood was already pretty dry. So if inflation accelerated during the pandemic, the real question is why the system was already so vulnerable to rising prices in the first place. Because if you misdiagnose the cause, you're probably going to prescribe the wrong cure.
For years, Canada's economy wasn't as productive as it should have been. Our major industries weren't investing enough, growing enough, or producing enough. The cost of everyday items went way up, and wages fell behind. That's what created the affordability problem.
Okay, let's put another pause here. Are you listening to Sherlock here gloss over some fundamental structural problems? Canada's affordability crisis didn't appear out of thin air. It is structural. Under Liberal government climate and regulatory policies tied to net zero policies, three major pipelines, Northern Gateway, Energy East and Keystone XL, were buried under years of regulatory expansion, environmental reviews and political roadblocks until they became economically impossible to build. And these weren't small projects. These pipelines together could have moved about 2.4 million barrels of oil per day, roughly $60 billion a year in energy exports. Over time, that's well over $1 trillion in economic value. But instead, because pipeline capacity was blocked, Canadian oil is trapped inland and sells at the Western Canadian Select discount, often $15 to $30 per barrel below world prices. So let's be clear here. Canada didn't just block pipelines. It structurally locked itself into selling one of its most valuable resources at a discount. Next, take a listen to the solutions offered to create higher-paying jobs.
By creating new, higher-paying jobs. To do that, we're securing new trade partnerships. We're attracting massive new investment in Canada, and we're fast-tracking new nation-building projects. We're already seeing results, but some of the biggest payoffs will take time. And many Canadians need a boost today and a bridge to that better future.
You want to know what is economic fucking suicide? The idea that Canada can pivot away from the United States. Understand that 75 to 77% of Canadian exports go to the US. That's about $420 billion a year, and roughly $3.6 billion in goods crosses the border every single day.
So as we build our economy, we're bringing in new measures to make life more affordable. We canceled the consumer carbon tax on day one. We cut income taxes for 22 million middle-class Canadians. We cut taxes for first-time homebuyers. We protected essential social programs that bring down costs for Canadians. And we're moving fast to get more houses built so your costs can come down.
And now I'm going to explain in plain English why every one of these measures is complete bullshit. First, they didn't eliminate carbon pricing. They just moved it upstream. The industrial carbon tax is still fully in place, meaning energy producers, manufacturers, and transport companies still pay it. And when businesses pay higher costs, guess what happens? Those costs get passed down the supply chain and land right back in consumer prices. Number two, cutting tax for 22 million Canadians. Well, the devil's in the details. The cut is in the lowest tax bracket and only by 1%. Big whoopie-doo-dah. That's not relief in an affordability crisis. Number three, cutting taxes for first-time homebuyers. That's another whoopie-doo-dah because calling a $1,500 tax credit a housing solution in a $700,000 housing market is a drop in the bucket. Next, we have protected social programs. Sounds noble, until you realise it usually means spending more money while getting worse results. Canada now has average healthcare wait times of about 27 weeks from referral to treatment, the longest on record. And finally, we have the promise of building affordable housing. Nothing says affordable housing like 6 figures in government fees before the first brick is even laid. Development charges alone can add over $100,000 to a new home. And restrictive regulations push prices even higher.
One area that needs special attention is the cost of groceries. So we're stepping in. Right now, a family of 4 receives about $1,100 a year with the existing GST credit. With the new Canada Groceries and Essentials benefit, that same family will receive nearly $1,900 this year and about $1,400 a year for each of the next 4 years. Now, if we keep increasing productivity, creating good jobs with better wages, in a few years, people's household incomes will catch up with their everyday costs. Until they do, we're putting more money in their bank accounts 4 times a year. We can't control the weather or what other countries do. We can control what we build, and we choose to build Canada strong.
So here we go again. Government hands out checks and pretends the money comes from nowhere. The Grocery Rebate cost $2.5 billion and gave Canadians a few $100s once, while grocery bills have risen thousands a year. Meanwhile, Canada spends over $50 billion annually just paying interest on its debt, about $1 billion every single week. Think about that. That's roughly a hospital a week not being built. Well, folks, that's the math. I'm just the dog doing the numbers. Thank you and good night.